Greetings everybody and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back here with the series I'm doing right now. It's 7 days. The series is called the Hard Rock 7. I've chosen basically 7 bands. I had 13 and I broke it down to 7 bands that I think, first of all, the first criteria is that I like them all. I like all of these 7 bands. Second thing is that they had to have some notoriety. They had to be famous enough for people to know who they are. They've had to have a huge influence, and this band we're doing today has had a massive influence, I think, in the hard rock in general and music in general, and hard rock specifically. They also had to be bands that I think have withstood a bit of a test of time. I'm not sure exactly how long, but certainly had to be at least 10 years or more, right, for them all. At least their classic era had to be that, at least that long. And so these are not the definitive Hard Rock 7. This isn't like the Big 6 that I did not too long ago, or a month and a half ago, when I did the Big 6 progressive rock bands. They weren't any of my choices. They were just kind of known as the Big 6, or as the Big 6. I just decided to do a video talking about them, and probably should have just done my own instead. But I've learned from that. I'm not talking about bands I don't know much about now here, and all these bands I'm pretty familiar with. So today's Hard Rock 7 is going to be kind of a controversial band. Everything they touch turns either to gold or people hate them for it, and their most hated loved band probably in rock history, and we're talking about Kiss. Yes, Kiss had to be on this thing. First of all, most of the stuff that I love is hard rock. For at least the 70s, they were a hard rock core band. They came back to it a little bit later for a while, and then they kind of drifted a bit and came back again. They're a band that is willing to do anything to make it. That was the thing. That was the ad they put out initially for a drummer. Drummer has to be, or Peter Criss put that out actually, willing to do anything to make it. That's exactly what these guys are. They are one of the hardest working rock bands in history, and were willing to do whatever it took to make it big. And believe me, they're colossally hard-working band. Anyways, first thing up is this band was around since '73 and are still presently playing. I think they're on their final tour now, to be honest with you. That's the current status. 24 studio albums they made. And of those 24, I decided to pick the live album. This, to me, is their magnus opus right here. All the songs on here from the first 3 studio albums are at probably their best versions. This band is a live band first, kind of like The Who. Very, very live band, right? So this album came out in '75. Their last studio album came out, Monster, came out in 2012. Now, if I was going to choose a studio album to fit in here, I would probably go with Destroyer. That would probably be the album that most people would say is their studio magnus opus. Although there's a lot of call for Creatures of the Night as well. So, anyways. The classic era for me is from probably 73, 74 through to 79. Maybe some of you might want to go a little longer, but that's the original 4. That's the classic era. Although a lot of people came aboard when Kiss had dropped their makeup after Creatures of the Night with the Lick It Up album. There's a lot of people aboard here who don't even remember Kiss with the makeup. So I will say kudos to that era as well. For me, Kiss my listening era kind of came to an end with Lick It Up. That was the last album that I kind of followed them on, and that was actually a solid album, very good album. So the members of this band: Paul Stanley, of course, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, Bruce Kulick, Vinnie Vincent, Mark St. John, the late Mark St. John, Eric Singer, Tommy Thayer, and of course the late Eric Carr as well. So all really good members of KISS. Some of them better than others. Some of them get along better than others, but not many of them get along very well these days. So anyways, KISS, for me, they're the band that launched my rock interest. Before these guys, I had a little dabbling in some 50s music, and I did listen to the radio and had begun to listen to BTO a bit at that point in time too, but didn't even know they were called BTO at that time. But KISS, really, when I saw this album in the store in vinyl on the front for $5.99, I had to have it. It was my first KISS album, and just a fantastic opening, and then I was absorbed with them for 3 years before I kind of started to break out into other areas. But the influence of this band can't be overstated. First of all, they're one of the great live shows in the history of rock, have spawned many people who claim that this band was a huge influence on them. Metal bands, hard rock bands, even some country artists really said that KISS was the band that kind of put them on the map as far as music goes. And I too, and there's other people on YouTube who do the same thing as me, who cited this band as being a huge influence on them to get them into music. I don't think that you're overstating it. They're very different too, very unique with them. They were the first kind of band to put this glam stuff way up there. I mean, there's other bands doing it, Alice Cooper being the most notable, and there's still other bands doing it, but these guys were kind of the first one to be really noticed, and they were huge at one point. Giant band, well known, well established. I think there was a point in the history of music where they were probably the pinnacle band in the world, or 76, 77. There are people that will argue that. That's fine, you can argue it. I'm just telling you my own observation and my own opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm correct or incorrect. So you've got some really classic guitar riffing here, like some of the greatest hard rock guitar riffs put out there by Ace Frehley. Absolutely outstanding. Just legendary. And you know, this is one of those bands too, unlike a lot of the bands, and I think unlike any of the bands in this, I'm just trying to think through them, the remaining bands plus the ones we did. Yeah, this is the only one where the members all sang, at least initially in the classic era, and all of them sing well too. Like, I don't have a problem with the voice of any of them. Yeah, Gene Simmons' voice is kind of like Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, their voice is kind of gone now, but in the day, Gene Simmons' voice was very distinguishable. His antics alone on stage really set the tone for people. People came because of him and those antics. They wanted to see if this was real, or are they just hearing it? It was just a legend that wasn't true. So he kind of put them there, and his voice is very strong, very well known. Paul Stanley, I think, probably has the best voice overall, or did have the best voice overall for singing this kind of music. Peter Criss, maybe the best rock voice, and definitely had that kind of bluesy flavor and that real kind of raspy sound to it that really captured the imagination of so many people listening to the music and drew them in. It was good that they chose him to do the song Beth too, because he has the perfect voice for that ballading. Ace Frehley came along a little bit later, but I still love his voice quite a bit too. So this is one of those bands that kind of like the Beatles set that tone for everybody singing, right? And continued with that, and they modeled themselves after the Beatles in some ways, and they wanted all four of them to sing, and they all did a good job. So their hard rock stuff is to me, Stuff of Legends, they, the list of hard rock songs they put out, Calling Dr. Love, Flaming Youth, Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night, Party Every Day, the one song I could probably do without anymore. Stuff off Hotter Than Hell, like Strange Ways and Parasite, and Strutter and Deuce and all that, Nothing to Lose, all on their first album. Just one heavy barrage after another. And of course they fall within that same range as Aerosmith did, with the kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll theme on a lot of their stuff. Are they a rock and roll band? Yes, but they're more than that. They're a hard rock band. Now, they did do some grungy stuff at some point, and tried to do a progressive rock album. I don't dislike that album. I don't really. Do I think it's what people are trying to say, a hidden gem or an undiscovered masterpiece? No, it isn't. And perhaps Kiss would have been better off not to bother of trying that. But I do put them kudos out for making the effort. Some of the pop stuff that they did, like Unmasked and Dynasty, I don't mind either of those albums either. But overall, I think their best era was their hard rock era. They came back to it with Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up, which I think were both strong albums, easily could have been classic Kiss albums, despite the fact that neither Peter or Ace really were involved with either of those bands. But this is a band with a lot of influence and a lot of hard rock history. Say what you want about Kiss, they are a hard-working band. Yes, they're driven by money, and they have a family issue going on, which is unlike any other family issue, I think, in rock. But as a classic rock band, as a classic hard rock band, I think there's few that match them. So having said all that, if you have any comments about Kiss, you can put them in the comments section below. Try not to berate me too badly, but I found with Kiss fans, they either absolutely love everything they do, or they hate Kiss and they want nothing to do with them. So I tend not to be that way. I was in love with them at one time, and then I went through a period where I disliked them quite a bit because of the change of their music, and I came back, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle now. But anyways, if you got any comments about this episode, or anything that Kiss has done, or anything about the albums, or anything about their history, or anything about them in general, put them in the comment section below. Please like, please subscribe. It's much appreciated. And we'll be back tomorrow with day 5. So take care.